The air was thick with heat and silence when the rangers stumbled upon the scene. A once majestic lioness lay motionless near a dried riverbed, her golden coat dulled by dust and tragedy. Just a few feet away, 3 tiny cubs pressed together in the sand, trembling, their cries faint and desperate. They were barely 2 weeks old, blind to the cruelty that had stolen their mother, blind to the danger that surrounded them. The rangers moved quickly. One knelt beside the cubs, wrapping them gently in his shirt to block the blazing sun. "We can't leave them here," he muttered, his voice cracking. They all knew the truth. Without a mother's milk and warmth, these cubs wouldn't survive the night. The truck engine roared to life, and as they sped toward the sanctuary, the cubs' weak mews faded into the hum of the road. At the sanctuary, the atmosphere turned from relief to panic. The cubs refused the bottle, tiny jaws clamped shut, eyes glassy and dull. Hours passed. The veterinarian tried every formula, every drop of milk substitute known to man, but nothing worked. One by one, the cubs began to weaken. A silence heavier than grief filled the room. "We're losing them," whispered a caretaker. Her words hung in the air like a final sentence. Around her, exhaustion showed on every face. These were people who had seen life and death, yet this loss felt unbearable. Then, from the corner of the compound, came a sound no one expected, a soft, anxious whine. A German shepherd named Luna, the sanctuary's loyal guardian, pressed her nose against the enclosure bars, whining again, pacing. She had sensed something: need, fear, helplessness. When the gate opened, Luna trotted in cautiously. She sniffed the cubs, then lay down beside them, her body curved protectively around their fragile forms. One cub whimpered and nestled into her fur. Then another. Then all 3. Moments later, the faint sound of suckling filled the room. The caretakers froze. The impossible was happening before their eyes. The dying cubs had found a mother, and hope had found its way back into the room. Outside, the sun dipped behind the horizon, casting a warm glow through the mesh walls. A day that had begun with death ended with a miracle. As the sun rose over the sanctuary, golden light spilled through the mesh walls, washing over a sight few could believe. The 3 lion cubs lay nestled against Bella, the German shepherd who had stepped in when nature seemed to give up. Her steady breathing rose and fell beneath their tiny paws. The room that had been filled with panic the night before now hummed with quiet awe. Bella had recently given birth to her own litter just days earlier, and her instincts had barely rested. When she sensed the orphaned cub's distress, something inside her responded, not as a dog, but as a mother. The caretakers had hesitated at first, fearing for both her and her pups. But Bella left no doubt. She began grooming the cubs, licking the dust from their fur with deliberate care, her tail wagging slowly as though reassuring them that they were safe. Within hours, she did something no one expected: she allowed the cubs to nurse. Her own pups shifted aside without protest, as if understanding that their family had just grown. The room fell silent again, but this time it was a silence of wonder. Against all odds, this loyal shepherd had opened her heart to creatures that, one day, could overpower her with a single swipe. Days turned into weeks. Under Bella's watch, the cubs transformed from fragile orphans into playful, confident bundles of energy. When one bit too hard during play, Bella corrected them with a gentle nip, followed by a reassuring lick. When they tumbled too close to danger, her bark was firm, a mother's voice that needed no translation. Each evening, the caretakers would find her curled protectively around all of them, her pups and the cubs intertwined in a warm, breathing knot of fur. Sometimes, one of the lions would drape a paw over her neck, as if claiming her as their own. The sanctuary staff began calling her Mama Bella, and visitors often stopped in stunned silence, watching the impossible scene unfold before their eyes. No one could quite explain it. It wasn't logic, it was love, pure and instinctive, crossing the boundaries of species and fear. Under Bella's care, the cubs didn't just survive, they began to thrive. And deep down, everyone knew, something extraordinary was only beginning. By the time the cubs reached 4 months old, the tiny bundles of fur Bella once cradled had become muscular, restless adolescents. Their soft mews had turned into deep, rumbling growls that vibrated through the sanctuary walls. What had begun as gentle play now shook the ground, lion paws thudding against the dirt as they tackled one another in mock hunts. Feathers scattered through the air as they pounced on passing birds, their instincts sharpening with every leap. Bella watched it all with the calm patience of a mother who had seen chaos before. When they got too rough, her bark cut through the commotion like a commandment. Instantly, the cubs would freeze, heads bowed, eyes softening. But lately, one of them, Tao, the largest and boldest of the three, had begun to test those boundaries. It started small. A growl when Bella nudged him away from a food bowl. A playful swat that landed too hard. At first, she tolerated it, responding with a warning bark and a steady stare. But Tao was growing faster than she could keep up with. The balance between mother and cub began to shift, subtly but unmistakably. The caretakers watched nervously from behind the fence. "It's only a matter of time," one whispered. "They'll outgrow her soon." Another shook her head. "But look at them, she still has their respect." And for now, it was true. Even as Tao strutted with the first hints of dominance, the moment Bella growled, a deep, guttural sound from her chest, he would pause, eyes flicking with uncertainty before stepping back. But the change was undeniable. During feeding time, Tao began circling her protectively, not out of affection, but instinct, a young predator guarding what he saw as his territory. His siblings followed his lead, copying his movements, their play more forceful now, their claws occasionally drawing blood by accident. Still, Bella refused to back down. She met every challenge with quiet strength, her loyalty unshaken. At night, when the cubs finally collapsed in a heap of fur and exhaustion, she would curl beside them, licking their ears as if to remind them, "You are still my babies." Yet deep down, everyone at the sanctuary could feel it. The peaceful balance was slipping. The lions were growing faster than love could restrain. And soon, something would have to change. The tension that had been quietly building finally came to a breaking point one golden afternoon. The air was hot and dry, the kind that carried every sound sharply, the rustle of leaves, the flap of wings, the low rumble of lions at play. Bella sat nearby, watchful as always, while the three young lions wrestled in a cloud of dust. Their bodies were lean and powerful now, muscles rippling beneath golden fur. What had once been harmless roughhousing had turned into a test of strength. Tao, towering above the others, was the first to cross the line. His playful growls deepened into something primal as he lunged, not at his siblings this time, but at Bella. The impact knocked her off balance, sending her rolling onto the ground. A sharp gasp rippled through the staff watching from behind the enclosure. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to stop. Bella lay still, pinned beneath the massive lion, her dark eyes locked on his. Tao's claws grazed her shoulder. The caretakers began to move, shouting, ready to intervene, until Bella's growl cut through the air. It wasn't loud, but it was commanding, ancient, and fierce. Tao froze. His body stiffened, his breath heavy and ragged. Slowly, the dominance in his eyes faded. His ears flattened. With deliberate care, he stepped back, lowering his head until his nose brushed the dirt. The other two cubs stopped their play and watched in silence, their tails low, their eyes darting between their brother and the mother who still ruled them. Bella rose, steady and composed, shaking the dust from her coat. She didn't retreat. She simply stood tall, her gaze unflinching. For a moment, she seemed larger than life, this German shepherd who had faced down 3 lions and won, not through force, but through respect. The staff stared, stunned. "Did you see that?" one whispered. He submitted. From that day forward, something unspoken settled among them. The lions, though 3 times her size, continued to follow Bella's lead. When she walked, they walked. When she barked, they listened. She had raised them not just to survive, but to understand love and boundaries in the same breath. And though everyone knew the day would come when they'd have to part, one truth had become undeniable: Bella wasn't just their caretaker. She was their alpha, their mother, and their heart. Time moved like the slow turn of the sun over the sanctuary. The cubs Bella once carried beneath her paws had grown into towering young lions, sleek, strong, and restless for a wider world. Their roars, once playful, now rolled like thunder across the plains beyond the enclosure. It was clear, they were no longer the fragile babies she had rescued. nor the mischievous cubs tumbling through dust. They were becoming what nature intended, kings in the making. The sanctuary staff began the gradual transition. A new enclosure awaited them, a sprawling stretch of land where they could learn to hunt, roam, and prepare for life in a protected reserve. The first time the gates opened, the lions hesitated, glancing back toward the smaller pen they had always known. And there, waiting just beyond the fence line, stood Bella. Her tail wagged slowly, her head tilted as if reassuring them it was all right to go. Day after day, she visited the new enclosure. The moment the lions caught her scent, they bounded toward the barrier, pressing their massive heads against the wire, chuffing softly, the deep, affectionate sound lions use only for those they trust. Bella would lick their noses through the fence, her eyes bright, her body trembling with quiet pride. No one could watch without feeling a lump rise in their throat. Even now, separated by steel, the bond between them remained unbroken. Seasons changed. The lions grew into adults, majestic, powerful, commanding the respect of the wild. Bella, meanwhile, began to slow. Her steps grew shorter, her muzzle silvered with age. Still, she came every day, rain or shine, to see her boys. And every day, they came to her. One morning, the sanctuary fell silent. Bella had passed in her sleep, curled beneath her favorite acacia tree. The staff buried her near the lion's enclosure, beneath the same sky where her story had begun. That evening, as dusk painted the horizon gold, the three lions emerged from the tall grass and lay down together by the fence closest to her grave. They didn't roar. They didn't move. They simply lay there, their massive frames still, their eyes fixed on the spot where their mother rested. And in that silence, love spoke louder than any sound the wild had ever known.